Ask Mindful M Summer Spoken Word Series, Episode 9, What We Carry. Exploring For My People by Margaret Walker through the lens of marriage and family therapy. Hello, and welcome back to Ask Mindful M. I'm Mary O, Associate Licensed Marriage and Family Therapy. We are continuing our summer spoken word series where poetry becomes a doorway into conversations about ourselves, our relationships, our families, and the systems that shape us. Last week, we talked about grace. We talked about celebrating ourselves, not because we've arrived, but because we've made it here. And today, we're going to take that reflection one step further. Because if we want to really understand ourselves, we have to understand that our stories didn't begin with us, which is something that we have been walking through this summer in the summer series. So just to recap a bit, we carry things. Some things are handed to us. Some things were taught to us. Some things were modeled for us. And some things we may not even realize we're carrying until they begin showing up in our relationships. Today's featured poet, Margaret Walker, in her powerful poem, For My People, gives us an opportunity to think about identity, collective experience, resilience, and the stories that move through generations. So today, we are talking about what we carry. So this is the poem. I'm going to read it and then go from there. For My People, Margaret by Margaret Walker. For my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues and jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years, and the now years, and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, never understanding. For my playmates in the clay and dust and sand of Alabama backyards, playing, baptizing, and preaching, and doctor and jail and soldier and school and mama and cooking and playhouse and concert and store and hair and Miss Chomby and company. For the cramped, bewildered years we went to school to learn, to know the reasons why and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when, in memory of the bitter hours when we discovered we were black and poor and small and different, and nobody cared, and nobody wondered, and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children, and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching. For my people thronging 47th Street in Chicago and Lenox Avenue in New York and Rampart Street in New Orleans, lost, disinherited, dispossessed, and happy people filling the cabernets and taverns and other people's pocket, needing bread and shoes and milk and land and money and something all our own. For my people, walking blindly, spreading love, losing time, being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when hopeless, tied and shackled and tangled among ourselves by the unseen creatures who tower over us omnisciently and laugh. For my people, blundering and groping and floundering in the dark of churches and schools and clubs and societies, associations and councils and committees and conventions, distressed and disturbed and deceived and devoured by money-hungry, glory-craving leeches, preyed on by facile force of state and fad and novelty by false prophet and holy believer. For my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation, full of courage, issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and a strength of final clenching be the pulsing of our spirits and our blood. Let the marital songs be written. Let the dirges disappear. Let a race of men now rise and take control. Whew! A lot of layers there. There's something powerful about hearing a poem speak not only to an individual experience, but to a collective one. Because sometimes we ask, why am I like this? Before when a more useful question might be asked of what happened around me that taught me this? That's a very different question. One invites shame, the other invites curiosity. And curiosity can be the beginning of healing. So thinking about the MFT connection, one of the things that I love about marriage and family therapy is that we don't simply look at a person and ask, what's wrong with you? We ask, what happened in the relationships and systems around you? We look at patterns, context, family rules, roles, beliefs. History, culture, and the way those things influence how we relate to one another. Because maybe your family taught you that conflict means danger. So now you avoid difficult conversations. Maybe you learned that love means taking care of everyone else. So receiving support feels uncomfortable. Maybe you grew up hearing that emotions should be kept private. So vulnerability feels unfamiliar. Or maybe you inherited something beautiful. A strong sense of community, a tradition of showing up, a commitment to faith, a love of storytelling, a resilience that says, we've been through worse and we're still here. Because here's the thing, families don't only pass down wounds. They pass down wisdom, they pass down strength, they pass down culture, they pass down survival, they pass down love. And sometimes they pass it down all at once. So here's today's clinical pearl. We can't always choose what was handed to us, but we can become more intentional about what we hand forward. Let me run that back. We can't always choose what was handed to us, what was taught to us, what was modeled for us, what was shown to us, right? But we can become more intentional about what we hand forward, what we say, our words, our actions. That doesn't mean blaming the generations before us, and it doesn't mean pretending harmful patterns didn't exist. It means developing enough awareness to say, whew, this was a part of my story. But it doesn't have to be the end of my story or the definition of my story. That's where agency enters the conversation. Think about a family pattern that has existed for years. Maybe it's how conflict gets handled. Maybe it's how affection is expressed. Maybe it's how money is discussed. Maybe it's what success is supposed to look like. Maybe it's who gets to speak and who is expected to stay quiet. These patterns can feel so normal that we don't recognize them as patterns. We just call them, that's just how my family is. But awareness gives us a choice. We can ask, does this still serve us? And if it doesn't, what would we like to do differently? That's not rejection. That's intentionality. And I want to be careful here, because generational healing isn't always about identifying what we want to leave behind. Sometimes healing means identifying what we absolutely want to keep. Maybe your grandmother taught you how to make everyone feel welcome. Maybe your father taught you the importance of showing up. Maybe an auntie taught you how to speak up for yourself. Maybe your family survived circumstances that required incredible strength, and you want to continue to honor that. Those things matter too. So perhaps the question isn't simply, what do I need to break? Maybe it's, what do I want to preserve? What do I want to transform? And what do I want to create that did not exist before me? So take a moment with me and think about your family story. Not just the difficult parts, the whole story. What did you inherit that you want to honor? And what did you inherit that you want to transform? Maybe there's a belief you've carried that no longer fits the person you're becoming. Maybe there's a relational pattern you're finally beginning to recognize. Maybe there's a strength you've taken for granted because it was simply what your family did. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to look at it with curiosity, not shame, not blame, curiosity. Because your history matters, your family's history matters, your culture matters, the systems that shaped you matter. And here's the beautiful thing about being human. Your history can inform your story without writing your ending. You can honor where you come from while still choosing where you're going. You can love your family and still choose a different pattern. You can appreciate what was given to you and still decide what gets passed forward. That is agency. That is growth. And sometimes that is what generational healing looks like. So I'll leave you with 2 questions today. What legacy are you carrying? And what legacy are you creating? Let's sit with those. Talk about them, write them down, and maybe share them with someone in your family. Because sometimes one person's awareness becomes the beginning of a new family story. Thank you for spending these mindful moments with me. Until next time, stay mindful. I'm Mary O, Associate Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. Y'all take care.